Jefferson County Council for November 13th, 2024. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks everyone for being here. I got the chair that's going down. All right. First thing on the order is the approval of minutes from our October 9th, 2024 meeting. Everyone get an opportunity to read those. Entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Eric made a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Matt, second. All in favor?
I'm gonna say, I wasn't at that.
I think you weren't here, right?
I wasn't at that.
Old business, the highway appropriations. That's been advertised, you guys.
Yeah, those have already been advertised and sent to you a couple weeks ago, probably.
Increase, decrease, sort of moving money around to pay, do things differently, increase,
What that mainly is for their salary. And it's, the money was mistakenly taken from one and needs to be put back in that one to get it. Because when they do their homework, that's how their jobs are.
yeah, the money's not taken from the general fund, it's taken within their own budget.
Lisa, you got two of these. So you already, we just approved the 9th.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't put
You gotta approve the 28th.
Sorry. Missed the line? Okay.
So this one's your special meeting.
A special meeting.
Next to the-
On the 28th.
The special meeting on the 28th was for your,
Yes.
for your EMS.
That's right. The special meeting on the 28th was for the SER tax. Did you guys read that? Everybody was here at that one. It's when we adopted the new tax for EMS, the public hearing. Entertain a motion to pass.
Motion. Second.
Andy made a motion, Todd second. And this is the special meeting on Monday, October 28th. All in favor? Opposed? Right, now the old business, the highway appropriation, they're moving money around to pay their bills. It has been advertised, money comes within their own fund, not out of the general fund. Need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Mike? Mike made a motion to approve, need a second? Eric? Any discussion? All in favor? Approved. Actually, I don't think she needs it back, but we don't have to sign it. If anyone wanted to know what was.
I do need it back.
You need that?
You do,
Yes, please.
so everybody see what was sent where. Okay, new business, Karen, election appropriations.
What I did this today, I didn't realize that the budget that I had to be was a little bit different than what you all now have. But I do believe that the numbers on the inside have changed. What I'm trying to do is trying to avoid maybe appropriating anything additional. And I was hoping we could collapse everything I have left over, which is, falls into that 8675 part of the budget. And I have also on top, there's $4,000 left over from annual poll workers. But I don't know if we can do that. You'll have to tell me if we can actually co-join the 4,100 numbers to use that. Does that make sense?
What she's talking about is all of her 41 members, not including her election deputy and her clerical assistant. That's $4,000, but you can't reappropriate that, you can't move that money.
She can't move the 41.
She cannot use payroll,
Yes, you can.
even though they're not employees. They all would be employees. I mean, at one time or another, they would have been.
So she's unable to move that $4,000.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so the bill that I received, when I got the budget, there was only about $10,000 budgeted for the full election for both general and the primary. So the bill that came in for the primary from GBS, who is our election vendor, was $11,000 and some change. And really what I have in that, what's left over under election ballots is $1,800. Because the new bill I've attached that just came is $10,282.67. So at that point, if we can't move any of the $4,000 that I have the balance of, then we're gonna need to add to this budget. I don't think, is it your sheet on it?
So you're 1625 short?
Yeah, right. Yeah, cause I think the numbers that Gail has here, well, a little bit more.
The 8675.
Yeah, you got you got an election supplies of $797, so it's probably gonna be about $2,500 additional that we need.
Okay, so she needs $2,500 additional, and that's gonna have to come out of the general fund to pay, the election bills.
Right.
And then the 4,000 that she had left over in her, it cannot be moved or used. Does that go back to the general fund? or
I
is it-
think here, yeah, should.
Okay, so it goes back in the general fund, so the 4,000 is going back in
Right,
the general fund.
and that's what I told her, if you look at her bottom line down there, that 29,000, which is a little different on the up-to-date BSR. The overall savings that she did by reducing the traveling boards and the different voting centers, I mean, it's too bad that she can't use that, but she still saved some money, but.
Is that a
you see
state
what I'm
rule
saying?
that we can't use that?
You can't transfer it.
You can't transfer, cause it's, a 41 is payroll.
Yeah. And then it'll go back in the general fund at the end of the year, but we have to, she needs $2,500 out of the general fund
Now, before the end of the
appropriated
year.
to pay.
And this is after I actually sat down and did all of my poll workers budget, so I've got the sheets all ready to go to Gail's office, but just didn't have enough money to cover this GPS bill.
Okay.
So we can just fill up, like, line item, election day support. We can, 2,500, we can make it 5,000.
Yeah, whichever one she wants to.
Cause the only one, so you said you can condense all the 43s.
Yeah, the 43s can be moved all into whichever one she so chooses.
You should have to do one of those appropriations for that though.
If it's within like a 42 to a 42, there's no appropriation needed, it's just
Okay.
within, the simple fact that she needs that additional 2,500 because she cannot take it from the 41s.
Well, then can I just go ahead and make a motion for $2,500 out of the general fund?
You can. Okay, and that was for the $2,500 to be moved to, do we need to say?
Should I do a line item?
Election day support?
Yeah, so 4355, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're all right with that?
Yes,
Okay.
4355. And that will get Karen's bills paid. All right, Andy made the, motion, Eric did the second. Any discussion? And the 2,500 will be moved to line item 4355, which is election day support. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, now we're down to the fun stuff, salary ordinance, or should we just, we don't have, the board appointments on there yet, should we?
I was asked if you were gonna do those, but you
Yeah.
guys are.
Yeah, Pete sent us a few, I've got one from Larry Jones. But the commissioners have some appointments also, it isn't just us, so when they send those in, they're not sending them in for specific council or commissioner, just sending it in, okay? And we do have to do,
There is some personal work one that is.
yeah, and we do have some turned in for park board. We have one for the Parks and Recreation Board, we do have one turned in for that, did you email them? You did.
Yeah, there's one in the email and then she just got one too.
Yeah, the
It
one,
was handed to me.
yeah, there you go. How do you guys wanna handle the second one, I'm trying to remember, was that Colleen?
Today?
The one that was in the email.
Kick it to December.
Pardon me?
Can we kick it to
We can
December?
kick it to December,
Do.
and then, you might have more people.
Well, as I
sign
said,
up.
especially if you just got some in, I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's,
We just got one in today.
we should
Just for
have time to
people,
look at all of them.
for the people at home that know, this Parks and Recreation Board, we do need one person for that. The Piavoa Board is 1-year term. That one has specifics to it, to criteria, correct? Am I correct on that or not?
It's,
Yeah, I think they have to have certain knowledge or certifications.
Yeah. And I try to remember who we put on that, I think it was a realtor that we did last time.
there's 2 realtors in,
Yeah,
Jefferson County, either the assessors in Jefferson County or the entity.
That's the commissioners appointed thirds, yeah.
Economic Redevelopment Commissioner is a 1-year term, and we need 2 appointments for that, and there's been 1 person turn in for that, is that correct?
Yeah.
I thought Larry.
You gotta defer to my email.
Yeah, okay, so we do need another person for the Economic Redevelopment Commission, I take that back, you sent one in today, but can a council member serve on that? Someone that's a council member like one of us? I don't know, because one of the people that applied is a council member.
Ordinarily not. Ordinarily, you're not supposed to serve on the board, unless, like, so there's some specific statutes, like where, you know, individuals are allowed to serve on multiple boards, but I mean, without a specific authorizing statute typically.
Okay, so we have 1 person that's applied, and we have 1 that's applied that's gonna be a council member, so they will not be serving on that board, so everybody listening, we need 1 person, more people to apply for the Economic Redevelopment Commission, it's a 1-year term. I have on here Economic Development Corporation, it's in the original list that we went through. Pete and I have been talking about that, and he seemed to think that we filled that board in February.
No, that is the one you do not actually fill. The corporation goes, it's a piece of the other one. John Bond explained it to me, so I apologize, I'm trying to paraphrase
Yeah.
the best I can. It's a piece of development, right? Economic development, that's what we said.
Yes, Economic Development Corporation,
Yes.
but the IC code
They
says
have to
that
serve
they are
on the
appointed.
commission for 2 years first, and then they move to the corporation. And,
By their bylaws
yes,
that were changed in 2018.
and that allows them to do, closed door meetings where they're accepting bids and, that's not saying it right, where they're allowed to review, organizations' financial information behind closed doors.
Okay. I'm still very confused on that, because if you look at the IC code on how you set those boards up,
So there's a bit of confusion, because there's the Economic Development Corporation.
Yes.
Which is what the bylaws are associated with. But the county, actually, if you go to their website, right, the website even explains that the way the corporation was founded was that the county set up an Economic Development Commission. The commission is actually the county board, right? So the county board is the Economic Development Commission.
Okay.
And that Economic Development Commission, apparently in 2003, I believe, made the decision to go ahead and set up an Economic Development Corporation. The Economic Development Corporation is a non-for-profit corporation. It's registered with the Secretary of State. It's technically not a county body.
Okay.
The bylaws say that there shall be 3 voting members. Those persons appointed and serving as members of the Switzerland County Economic Development Commission on January 1st of the previous year may elect to serve as voting or non-voting members of the corporation. So the corporation's members, voting members, are apparently, Pete was saying it's a 2-year phase, and what it says is that
So they're on the commission first.
so there should still be appointments to the commission.
Yes.
There's the commissioners have an appointment, the council has an appointment, and then I believe the town of Eby has an
Yes.
appointment. It's the Economic Development Commission.
Okay.
But the corporation is technically a separate, not-for-profit entity, which has its own bylaws. Those bylaws say that they take their members from the commission.
Okay. My question is, that's a 4-year term. Those are 4-year terms. And they're staggered.
Bruce would have been the previous commission that Colleen filled, and that ended in 23.
Okay. So of other, I know they're staggered. I know in 2018, we appointed someone, I believe. So then you would have done it again 4 years later, I think every 2 years, because it's a staggered thing, so that you never have all 3 new members on that. I
And the
believe.
commissioners appointed them at the
Yes.
same time. Because you guys,
Okay,
the council and commissioners appointed at the same time, but one of them had been vacated
because of a death.
because of the
Okay.
passing.
All right. And there is no appointment for the commission? Is that what you're saying, that we did one?
My
in
belief is that
February?
there is an appointment, it's not until 26 at the earliest,
Okay.
December 31st of 2026. Let me rephrase that.
I'm a little confused on that still, because I tried looking it up.
Does John Bond agree that there's an opening in 26?
He agrees there's not an opening right now
On the commission or the corporation?
on the commission.
On the commission.
Yes, so if you like, I can get my laptop, because I have all the ones
And then you have redevelopment.
When I started.
It's
So-
confusing.
that Bruce Williams
I didn't know there were two.
is a previous appointment, the last time he was appointed, ended in 23. And I believe it was February 1st of 23. However, that position was not refilled until February of this year.
You guys remember you're filling the position February of this year?
I would have more time around the phone.
Doesn't sound familiar. Correct, do I want to make a comment?
Please.
Who's on that board? Who's on that board for the council?
I think it's called like, she is your appointment.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, I think we did put her on there this year.
Okay.
I remember the name.
All right.
She's in redevelopment.
No,
No?
development.
And she's commission, not corporation.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're gonna let them slide it. Alcohol Tobacco Commission, there's still confusion on that board, the Alcohol Tobacco Commission board. It's a 1-year term, it's done every year, needs to be done December at the very latest, so that it can be active and done. It takes time for the paperwork to go into the state of Indiana, or for them to get that fixed up, and I don't know if it's last year we did it really late or something, it really messed it up for the entire year. I know that one that we did was Scotty Moore, and I believe he's reapplying. Did he reapply yet? Did he reapply already? Okay. And he was thinking today that he was, at the meeting, he was appointed by the commissioners, he was appointed by the council. So, but it doesn't, he applied, but it doesn't mean it's for the commissioners or the council, so the commissioners can appoint him before our next meeting. So we do need more people to apply for the Alcohol Tobacco Commission. It's a 1-year term. Okay, and then the town of Beebe has one also, but that, you have to live in the town of Beebe for that one. So if anybody's interested in that, okay, so we will not do these this time, we'll do them in December. I'm okay with that, as long as they get done before, so the first of the year can start out the way it should be. Salary ordinance. There's a few things on here that we need to work on, and I did talk to the treasurer. There's a part-time position in the treasurer saying that we need to not have on here. That one
We
is-
never, I went back and listened to the meeting to try to,
Yeah,
and it was never, yes or no, so
We
I
never
did
did.
take it off.
we never discussed it, I don't think we did not discuss it. I think we did with her, but not with anybody else, so that's a $9,000 that needs to go. I did, even though you've got like the deputy 2, deputy 3, and the sheriff's department, those are still hourly salaries, hourly rates, correct?
I thought they got,
I mean, it's not a salary, they clock in and out, they have hours, they work hours,
right,
40
but they
hours a
can
week.
still have a salary and get overtime.
Yeah, but once they hit 40 hours, then they have overtime.
Right.
But-
But their salary is set at a certain amount a week, I believe. I mean, I can get with
Yeah,
Brian.
and that's based on a 40-hour week, is what,
Right.
yeah, that's the whole, that's the
When they
whole,
get overtime, they turn in overtime once a month.
yeah. When I was asking about the hourly rate,
Right.
you know, we have some people in the salary ordinance where it says what their hourly rate is, $19.50 an hour.
They've never
whatever.
had an hourly rate on there. That's why I didn't put one on there. It was never, I can go back and put one in there.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have that, because I want to see that we're paying per job. You know what I mean? I don't, for me, that if you're gonna be paying by, they've worked hourly forever. All the guys there have always worked hourly. It's just not been written on the paper, but they're hourly, cause they clock in, they clock out.
Right, you can still clock in and out and be salary though, at a salary rate, a weekly rate.
But if you don't work 40 hours, they're not gonna pay you 40 hours in the sheriff's department. They don't pay you for
Right, but
40
that's what
hours
I'm saying.
automatically
They
if you're
have to
not
work
there.
their 40 hours,
Yeah, to
or
pay.
80 hours
Yeah.
a week, and then whatever their overtime is, they'll pay the following.
For me, it helps me to see that they're,
But
what
you see
rate
what
we're
I'm saying,
paying.
just
Yeah,
because they work hourly doesn't mean, but I can go in there and put them in there.
yeah, what their hourly rate is helps me to know that we're doing things fairly.
I mean, they have their own handbook, they have everything, so
Yeah.
that's, I mean, I never.
They have their own
any of that,
matrix.
So I can put that in there,
Yes.
That part-time deputy treasurer is in the budget.
I know.
Pardon me?
But see,
It's in
it
the
was,
budget.
it was put in the budget.
Yeah.
It was
The budget
approved.
was approved, but I was told that this, they can choose not to fund things.
We choose not to fund it.
Yes, you choose not to fund things, the council
If
chooses.
it's in the budget, it needs to be on the sheet, then we can choose to remove it later, but if it was approved in the budget, shouldn't be on the sheet.
That's,
It doesn't have to be, you can remove anything off the sheet you wanted to.
Right, but I mean, you guys approved, I wasn't here, but you guys approved this budget, and it's in the budget, so it shouldn't
Well, like
be
I
on the
said,
sheet.
we accidentally let that slide through, cause that was one that we were not gonna fund,
But you did.
but we don't have
You
to.
put it on there, we cannot fund it.
Right, I mean, that's what I'm saying, we voted later, because we voted to take it off. But I
Well, why,
feel like-
why would we not take it off before we approve the salary ordinance?
I think we got to the point where we was comfortable with what we've done.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
but we don't wanna take it off before we approve this?
and I don't see a need for us to put it on, we all, I mean, those of us that were at the budget meeting know that that was our intent.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about it.
You're gonna have to address this again, huh?
We didn't even talk about this.
I'm just going off what you guys approved.
Yeah.
So,
Is that a new
My thought is-
position?
Yes, it's an addition.
It's an addition to.
I mean, if we leave it on there and you approve the salary ordinance with it on there, knowing full well that you don't wanna fund that, I mean, and then they go to hire somebody. Say, well, I've got it in the budget to do this, and we didn't take it off the salary ordinance.
When will you,
Make any sense,
when will you choose not to fund something if you're not gonna fund it?
before you approve the salary
Before you
ordinance.
approve this?
Would make
I'm just
sense to me,
asking.
that would make sense to me,
yeah.
wouldn't it?
100%.
Yeah, this supersedes anything that's in the budget, because we either say we're gonna
I'm
fund
just
it or
asking.
we're not.
Yeah, and now's the time to do that, not after the fact, you do it before you approve it. So that's one thing that stood out to me, is that one, that we missed taking that off. And, it gives us 9,000 to the good. I'll write that down, because I'm trying to figure out how to fund a couple things. We had a discussion during the salary, the salaries talking, the deputy coroner. You in the state of Indiana, you don't have to pay for a deputy coroner? I don't know.
So he's just on call 24/7? He's not allowed to leave the county or anything?
For the country? Maybe
I
not.
don't know. I just know that you don't have to pay for one. You don't have to do a deputy for that. We looked that up that day.
Then you're not gonna have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's
what if,
no way you could do that job by yourself.
so what if the coroner's not available?
They use a deputy, or they use a,
The deputy's not there, then what?
no, that deputy sheriff,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds,
that was his explanation. If they're not there, then they use,
You know, I don't know. That's not
I mean, I think it's a little high, but
it's not my job department.
We need
but
to-
I think you're
we
right.
need to have one, the salary's a little on the high side, but
That is because he had a deputy and then he had a part-time deputy.
And they combined them.
And they combined the two salaries is why.
Yeah. And that doesn't make the salary not too high, because the salary is too high for that.
Well, I'm just
If
saying
at
that's
all.
how he come up with that number,
Yeah.
combining those.
Do we know how many runs those folks make in a?
Depends on how many people die, I
I
guess.
don't know, but I just wondered if there was some history that we,
He might have some.
So they do seem fine to me.
daily, weekly,
Has anybody talked to the coroner about this, or are we just bringing it up in this meeting?
just bringing it up this meeting.
Same way with the treasurer, nobody's talked to the treasurer
I
about
had
it?
talked to the treasurer about it, yes.
Okay.
And there was no intent at all to ever hire a part-time person in there.
No.
Would make sense to get some information from the coroner, and let's get some intel as
It
to
would,
how
it
many
would.
runs they make and
But
the
it's,
lands.
that's a lot of money for a part-time,
Yeah, it is.
person that may get called out 5 times a year. I mean,
I think they're called out a hell of a lot more than that.
the coroner is, I'm talking about the deputy.
Yeah,
He's called out and said the
I
coroner.
believe so, yes.
Okay. That's something we need to discuss before we pass this, is that one.
Let's have him come to the
Okay.
next,
Oh,
council meeting and explain that. Because there's verbiage and things that are gonna change in here, so this will be voted on in the December council.
Yeah, and the rate is as high as it is because it was 2 salaries combined into 1 salary, 2 part-times into 1 part-time.
Right.
And
Yeah,
you really don't even have to have a part-time at all, is what
No,
I'm
you
saying.
gotta have a part-time.
I mean, by the state statute, you don't, but
Yeah.
a lot of places don't.
What do you do with the deputy?
I think that was one of them that, well, I was in a state meeting a day where they were talking about, reducing government stuff, and that was one of the hits was that actual office period. You know how every year they have, things, when, if either you're breathing or you're not, they didn't think you should have to pay somebody to decide whether somebody's breathing or not. And, they think that's one of the downscales. And just in one meeting that I was in, they talked about reducing government, that was one of the reducing of governments. You know, and how all the trustees and, how they've been talking about that for years and years to try to downsize government. That was one of the things that they were talking about, so that's why I brought that up. Anything else stick out to anybody anywhere?
What is this code enforcement officer?
It's, someone to enforce the ordinances that we have in the county.
And this has been approved by who, or it just showed up in this salary ordinance?
That's been talked about during the whole time we were doing the budgets.
The commissioners asked
Yeah.
for it to be put in,
Yeah,
they've not hired anyone.
now's the time to talk about it.
Yeah,
I think it's bullshit.
if you're looking for cuts, that's a good place to do it. We got code enforcement,
Yeah,
people right
there's
across the
one.
street.
I agree
That,
with that.
that refuse to enforce the ordinances and the codes.
I don't believe that.
I'm not gonna enforce it, that's the exact words out of their mouth.
So we just hire somebody?
No, we don't hire anybody, commissioners hire somebody.
Do we even have any ordinances that are up to date in effect? I thought
Yeah,
they
there's a
were
lot of
I thought they just blessed that.
I
They
don't,
did
I haven't seen a new book, there hasn't been a new book or anything
Yeah,
that I
one of
know
the-
of. I don't know.
commissioners
I mean,
meetings, I know they had that subgroup, and they
Right.
approved
Yeah.
it there.
You know what I mean, like
Yeah.
with a book that's
I don't
coming
know
out
if-
so that you can actually, you're gonna have an enforcement officer, but you're not gonna have a new handbook from the company.
I know that, I don't know that the commissioners blessed that
Yeah,
handbook,
the
but I
old
know
ordinance
their
handbooks,
their
it'd be nice if
advisory
the
board
old
blessed it.
ordinances
Some kind of
were
advisory.
followed and enforced, would be a good thing.
I mean, specifically, I think that it's primarily ordinances like nuisance ordinances and potentially, primarily nuisance ordinances, rank weeds and vegetation, those type of ordinances. And there are a number of those ordinances already on the book, and I think what the subcommittee was working on was sort of consolidation of those ordinances into sort of a streamline.
Right.
Countywide.
Okay. So that's a question that you have that we need to have, ask the commissioners to come and talk about that.
Yeah, because they're calling it an officer. I mean, is he, what kind of authorities do you want to really have? Is he getting sworn in?
The same
to
thing
some
as
kind
what, I would say what your planning and zoning.
It's just more of Jamie's war on the Amish, is all it is. But to put it point blank, that's all it is.
Okay.
So.
So that's an ordinance that's not
I
being
mean,
followed?
I don't know that that's,
I mean, I
I
don't
will
know.
agree with you that there's, the poop bags behind their horses, but
That is an ordinance,
I mean,
that's
I
not
know that
followed.
they got into conversations about garbage in front yards, they looked at what, Rising Sun did to remove,
But-
cars that hadn't moved in years, that was added, so
was
it's not really
The
Amish.
Rising Sun, the town did that, just like
Right.
the town of Edie has done that already.
Right, and-
And they
right.
are,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're getting any.
Have
payments
you
in
reviewed
with it.
Which part?
The amendments to the ordinances?
I have not reviewed anything recently, but I mean, I think part of the conversations earlier in the year, I believe they were asking about potential amendments to the nuisance ordinance and, upkeep ordinances.
But let's focus on the cars on
So we have, we
So
have the
there's
corner,
ordinance
we have
out
the
in the county
corner
that
that
hasn't
needs to
been
come
followed.
in.
You know, just a few years ago, the one on Taft Ridge, that there was a big, took years. to
Isn't
get
planning
that
and zoning in
resolved.
charge of that?
That's
Enforcing
who-
that ordinance?
That's who this person would be working with.
Why wouldn't we just make planning and zoning do it? We have a whole board,
They've never done it.
Because they don't.
so we just create a position because,
Yeah, you have an ordinance about push bags on your horses, but the person that's supposed to enforce it says, I'm not gonna enforce it. So what do you do?
run through it?
Huh?
Jesus.
John Canola makes a presentation almost every
Yeah,
single
he
year.
does.
He
I've
does.
never heard him
Every
mention-
commission.
never heard him mention Amish, I have heard him mention oftentimes, many times, cars, trash, whatnot. The question
Every
is,
time.
do we have updated ordinances? Is there something to enforce? Will this person have the skill set to enforce it, the authority to enforce it? And
A lot of
authority?
questions. A lot of questions. So,
It sounds like a good thing, the question
it
is,
sounds like, yeah, so that's a discussion that
Yep.
needs to be had.
So let's have the commissioners come in and explain it at the salary ordinance meeting.
So, who does it now?
Nobody,
Nobody.
nobody. Lance, there's another question with the, SEER. You had mentioned something about a salary being paid out of the lit, the new lit. See, none of that is, you know,
Not the new lit,
the SER,
the public safety tax.
public safety tax.
You guys mentioned that you were bringing the director over, the SCR director over to public safety tax?
We did not mention.
No, we didn't mention that.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
No. Oh, I thought they,
I thought that was part of getting SCR to be able to fund.
to be funded.
Just to raise their tax, give them casino money, and move the director's salary to public safety. I thought that's what you guys agreed upon. Okay. I misheard, sorry.
There was a little discussion, because we were 100,000 off. We were still 100,000 short of funding SCUR.
We're getting, those were.
And I think that's why that, you're exactly, I think that comment was made, that nothing was ever decided on that, because that would, that gets you almost, not the 100,000 that we're short. That's gonna have to come out of casino revenue.
So, at this point, what,
Doesn't come out.
Well, that's why I said that we'll have to move the salary over.
well, I mean,
Is there enough money in the public safety for that left over? Because we, most of that's spent, isn't it?
there's money in the fund, but I don't know if you could do it forever. I know you could do it for 1 year.
The reason why there's money in the fund is because we hold back 10% every year, and that's why it's built up to have money in the fund, so you can't count that.
But
It
is-
still needs to hold back 10%,
Is SCER gonna fund from what you guys did?
$100,000.
Yeah, they're.
So how are we gonna do that? How are we gonna fix that?
The commissioners are the ones that are gonna have to fix
They're
it.
gonna have to.
They have to, it's their call, whether, if they don't fund it, using casino revenue, it's their call, then they gotta come up with 100,000, because SCR reports to them.
And that was all agreed upon.
That was their deal.
They don't come up with 100,000 without us, so that's the reason I'm asking.
Yeah, well, we don't have it, so they would have.
Well, we absolutely have it, it's just a matter we wanna
What are we
get.
gonna cut to get to it?
Well, you don't have to cut, you can, that's what I'm asking, you move a salary over to public safety, then there's,
But it won't fund every
70,
year,
75.
so there isn't that much extra in the public safety to do that every year.
not every year, no.
Yeah, so you can't move it.
Yeah, but you still, there's still,
Yeah,
I don't know, there's still $400,000 or $500,000.
can't move it. I thought you were talking about moving some of the salaries into the new safety.
No, no, no.
Okay. All right, so that question's answered. I'm glad to see that the, scanner genealogy thing is not on the ordinance, because she can't afford to do that out of perpetuation fund, and, we don't have money to do that. The, deputy and reassessment is still there. Have you filled that position? Okay. And is it our call to whether this is not paid out of, the general fund. But it does cost us insurance, correct? Okay.
And what are we short right now in Bennington and?
There's $25,000 on one of Bennington that's not funded, and, $50,000 on the tech building that is not funded. Cause it wasn't added to the general fund when the budgeting went through. It was missed. It was at the bottom of the page, you know, she puts the things that are not funded at the bottom. Those are the two things that are not funded. Everything else is just about taken care of, but we haven't taken care of those two.
But you can't really do anything now to them, because the budget's already.
We could ask the commissioners if
We
they.
have to fund it somehow, so they
They
don't.
don't, something will have to be done in the next year.
You wanna get into
Yes.
the ordinance, they're gonna tell us to bite ourselves when we ask for that.
Anybody else have any questions else on here? I have the deputy in the reassessment.
Can I go back to the
Yes.
sheriff's office for just
Sure.
a second? I just got a message from the sheriff. It said he's only been asked, he was asked 3 years ago about license plates on Amish buggies. That's the only conversation he's ever had in the matter of this, and he told me he had bigger fish to fry. That was 3 years ago. So there you go.
Alright. So if you go over and say, there's an ordinance, you gotta have a license plate, and he's gonna say you got bigger fish to fry, so that's why they want.
That was
to
3 years ago. So.
Are
so
they
we
doing
really-
it now? Are they? is it
Probably
this
hasn't
or
been-
is it-
We probably still got bigger fish to fry with as much as we keep cutting this damn budget.
They're buying the buggy plates, cause those are bought in my office, so. Somebody's got them on their buggy.
That's good. They should. They use the roads, it should help pay for the roads.
$25.
Okay, I got another question. Oh, the communications director, that's paid through statewide 911, right? And I wanna bring this up, and you can hate me forever, I really don't care. The GIS mapping and IT director, I wanna have one IT person in Switzerland County, one IT person for this county is enough. I don't wanna be paying for two.
We did have this, we had this conversation at
Are
the
you talking
budget.
about the GIS director, or are you talking about?
Yeah.
GIS
I don't know
mapping
what the difference
slash
in that-
IT director.
yeah.
Okay, the GIS mapping / IT director comes out of the general fund, that comes out of the sheriff's budget.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with the.
Yeah, but I'm
911
wanting to know what the
communication.
difference in the jobs are, the GIS mapping and the, communications director.
Communications director is over the 911.
Okay, and
Mapping
then
is
they aren't the
creating-
ones that do the
Mapping will
911.
create the 911 addresses,
That isn't, the GIS mapping isn't the same thing as that, it's about the addresses.
yeah, that one does, the GIS mapping does that.
Okay,
Really,
GIS
that's gonna
does
be the director.
911 addresses, or 911 director does,
GIS director does.
okay. And then the communications director does
She's
not do
gonna be-
911.
Manages the staff.
She manages the staff.
Manages
that's
the staff.
Within the 911.
All right,
Dispatch.
So what we asked the sheriff to come back, and I have not seen it come back. We asked him to explain to us, said that we weren't gonna pay for an IT director. And he went through a litany of the past, sheriffs over there had experience, or it was their hobby to fix, software and update stuff. That doesn't cover us when it comes to the county's liability with the computer system. And we asked him how much of this salary that he has / IT director is dedicated to the IT director. I've never heard from him since then. So, do we make our own cut, because commissioners are saying we should have one IT person in the county, whether we use the current one, or we go out and find a company to fulfill our IT needs, that's the deal. So, either this IT director that is funded on salary ordinance, we figure out how much we wanna cut, or the sheriff comes to us and says, cut it by X percentage, cause this is what we pay into it. Otherwise, he's not the IT director.
I thought Brian mentioned that, they just added the IT director on the GIS mapping position, just as. because-
title.
As a title, cause he had helped them through the virus, or whatever we have.
But then you're explaining to us that a GIS mapping
But I
person
don't think
makes
he had any
59,
salary,
yeah.
so he said that day. I could be wrong.
But that was and you may be right, but then if you remember, the conversation was, you got this guy making 59,000 and you got deputies that serve you that are 8,000 underneath him.
And every one of them deputies will back that IT director,
But
so they must not be too upset about the salary.
I would-
Every one of them deputies will back that
also
IT
what
director.
Ryan had said too,
I don't know.
and I don't wanna miss.
Just because you don't talk to anybody.
I think, that- I
Andy,
mean,
how do you know I don't talk to people?
Because I talk to these people.
Well, okay, you talk to them, not me.
you might have an entry-level deputy making 51, but your GIS guy, like, I think Ryan said been here 25 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why you're seeing more of a salary getting, he's getting increases for 25 years.
I think the question is how much, what portion of his job is IT related? And if he's no longer gonna be an IT person, because we went to a single IT person, which given the size of the organization, you certainly could do, then what portion of that comes off the salary? That's the question. And in that meeting, we didn't get an answer. It was,
No.
you know, it's hard to, I think the response was, it's hard to say.
And then we
So I think
asked,
the request was, put some thought into it, come back and let us know.
then we asked if he would do the IT for the whole county.
And he said he would, he did not want to give up county for
And we would be willing to actually to offer a bump on his salary if he would,
We had one.
if we could go to one. We could pull from the current source on the courthouse side, add to that 59,000 and have one IT director. And I don't think we've gotten a response on that
The
either.
response was no.
Oh, the response came back as no. He wasn't.
And in that meeting, it was no.
I like seeing him go to the courthouse too.
Yeah, we need to pay for just one.
Would seem to make sense.
We're not a large enough organization.
Or
to
if he's
pay for
saying
two
it's just
IT
a
directors.
position, he put IT director on it, and strike IT director, and he's just the GIS mapping person.
And then you need to determine what is the GIS mapping person, what should they make?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to that, but some quick research that other counties would tell us.
Can we ask Brian to come back in on one more time on the next meeting? Just
I did do some,
Yeah, I think you're right, Don.
some
That would
calculating
probably- so
from
you wanna add
hospitals
that?
on IT.
I mean,
yeah,
We paid, that's pretty
Yeah,
high.
I
Need
like
more
that.
information to
He
make.
said he
better
talked to
decisions.
Kevin's willing to work with him and whenever he wants.
But he did, the biggest thing with him is,
Everyone.
he didn't wanna move from sheriffs to under the commissioners. I remember.
From the direct report.
That was the
Yeah,
biggest thing,
yeah,
I think.
you're right. That's
So
exactly.
that would you work it out?
I don't know. But
Yeah.
So if we have the commissioners here and we have the sheriff here, maybe we can sort through that last piece.
Yeah.
Maybe the commissioners, you know, don't really care, they care more about, let's spend less where it makes sense to spend less, and you can still report to the
But you
sheriff.
still have to have an IT person to help with the
And
courthouse.
he would still be responsible for the courthouse.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, who cares who he really reports to? If we're able to eliminate,
I don't care who reports, as long as we really pay for one IT
there
director.
you go.
I agree.
So we probably can work through that, I would think.
Okay.
We can get them both here.
So now we're adding the sheriff in to explain what he wants to do with the IT director.
Yeah, working.
And they can have it up. I agree, commissioners are gonna be here anyways, they can figure it out.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Should we modify that third paragraph at the top?
pardon me?
Should we modify this third paragraph at the top that talks about the handbook and in light of this settlement, should we reword that? or-
That's one reason why I had Pat here tonight.
Or strike it out completely?
Yeah,
Be all right?
you can't strike it out. But it needs to, it needs to clarify more, because we may have more than one handbook.
Sure, that's what
Yeah.
worried me about the way it's written now. So,
Yeah, well, the salary ordinance would be, the way it's written now, as it follows the county handbook.
Yeah,
So are you finished with the
So
salary
what-
ordinance?
Well,
I mean, we're
okay.
jumping now, it's,
Yeah, the sheriff, we need to talk to the sheriff about the IT. We need to talk to commissioners about the
Reporting relationship.
code enforcement officers.
And the code.
We need to
Coroner.
talk to the coroner about the deputy, because of salary, it's quite a bit for that. And I want a ratio on, if he's watching this, I'll call Quentin and ask him about how many calls and that kind of thing, to see, if that's quite a bit of money a year for that. And then, I would like to have the, assessor talk about the second deputy in her office.
So the deputy for
Yeah,
reassessment,
reassessment,
$40,000?
yes.
So the extra clerical, how do you, I mean, she's got
I don't know what that is.
two-step, whatever, yeah,
That,
let's
that
add
may be in.
extra clerical,
I
'cause I don't know
what
what that position does either.
So those are the three things that we need to talk about.
No, she was-
Now, do you guys wanna have them come to the meeting in December? Or do we wanna do that prior to that meeting in December?
Do what?
Talk to these.
At a
Do you
special
wanna-
I'm not doing a special meeting.
We'll just do that at the meeting in December?
There's no reason we can't do
And then
this.
Gail, if they come in December and we get it all ironed out, will there be enough time for you to have this, if we pass it with the whatever changes we make, will there be enough time for that, cause that has to be done in December? So there will have to be a special meeting after the meeting,
The meeting is like the ninth,
yes, second,
Maybe 11, right?
the 11th.
But,
Gotta be the 11th. I mean, there's plenty of time, what I'm saying is, normally when you do the salary ordinance, you sign it that night.
right?
So, if we don't have everything ironed out until that night, the page can't be signed, this is my question. To where we can't do it on, and let's say we get it all figured out,
We get it typed up, everybody makes a stop by at the courthouse, gets it sent, right?
that would have to
She
be,
comes see the auditor. gets
Yeah.
it. You get, that would be something.
I brought up
that
the,
would work okay?
my concern was the code enforcement officer, that was the question that I had. I'll be honest with you, I didn't do my homework, and I just seen that today. So like on the questions on the deputy treasurer, how long have you known about that we couldn't send an email out on? Or how about the coroner position? I mean, could we have sent an email out and talked about this over email?
I did not know, cause that's against the law, but
No, it's not. You can send anything you want over email. You
Yes,
cannot send it
yes.
over text.
it's still meeting, out of the meeting.
Any
No.
communication of more than, I mean, a quorum of this group is considered a meeting.
Through an email. So how in the hell do I get group text messages or group emails? And those are okay.
So procedural emails are allowed, I mean, like, when it's discussion about a topic that's actually gonna come up for final decision before the board.
Well,
That's what constitutes a meeting. If it's-
So the coroner position would have been through an email, would have been fine.
You can't discuss it though.
We do need to discuss the pros and cons of it.
You can ask questions about
Yeah,
it.
you can ask questions. I mean, we do it, we've done it for,
Email question, ask him a
I
question.
mean, I get 36 emails a day from this freaking group. So you mean to tell me that's illegal?
I don't know whether.
I'll show you the whole list of them.
I'd be happy to go through them with you if you want, I mean, but.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, some communication.
Most of them are saying thank you. I would, yeah, which pisses me off to no extent. But a thank you email.
Yeah.
Why does everybody need to see thank you? But anyways, I don't understand how we can have discussion through email because we've done it for years. So are we breaking the law?
If there's discussions that are happening about issues that are going to come for a vote before this council, then yes, that would
Okay,
be
so we've been
considered-
breaking the law for a long time then.
Well, that would be considered a public meeting, or it would be considered a meeting, and meetings are required to be public.
Okay, well,
So we're bringing this up and discussing it public, like we're supposed to.
But as long as you ain't voting on anything.
we discuss shit on email all the time.
No, you're not supposed to discuss business with 4 people or more.
It's
So if
approved
you, so
email.
if you sit at like, if we were sending it just to 1 or 2 people talking, discussing, you're allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do the whole group. Andy, I don't know. Now, somebody telling you what time a meeting is or where it is, that's not discussion,
I ain't got
that's
nothing to do with it.
procedural.
I'm gonna just go find one. We can do this after, but I guarantee what.
Find one of those. Okay, so we.
So that's assessor
Sheriff's
for
Department
deputy
is
and
IT.
extra. Gail,
Huh?
did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay, and the procedural part is what I was concerned with, is
Yeah, we can
December
see the
11th,
file
when we
log
do
on.
this meeting, this document is not gonna be ready that night. And we'll have to figure out a way to either have a quick special meeting to sign it the week after, or whenever you get it ready, we can do that. Or I don't know if it's all right for everybody in there, because if we iron everything out and adopt it that night, but the paperwork's not gonna be
No.
ready.
That's, I mean, as long as you
There's no
voted
way.
on it, as long as you voted on it. it's
Yeah,
in place.
and we can stop by and just sign it.
Memorialization.
So we could vote on it that night, if everybody's approval, and then just stop by and sign off on it.
Yeah. Cause it all has to be signed. Right. That's all, we've got 4 people to talk to. The coroner's about the deputy, the deputy's salary, and the reassessments on the, second deputy and the reassessment deputy. Commissioners is code enforcement officer, is that the only one?
Commissioners is the, executive, yes, the
Okay.
executive and the ordinance,
And the sheriff is the IT director.
and the sheriff is the IT director.
Does anybody else have any other questions on the salary ordinance?
Pat, you gonna write up something different to replace the verbiage?
So, in the settlement agreement, I talked to Lisa a little bit about it before the meeting, and, while we've had the meeting, I pulled up the settlement agreement, took another look at it. And the settlement agreement, it does provide that the board is gonna separately, the board of commissioners is gonna separately adopt from the personnel policy, an ordinance to satisfy the requirements of the Affordable Care Act, the Family Member Act, Equal Opportunity Act, and the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, sexual harassment, violent workplace, anti-nepotism, and any other similar federal or state mandate which is applicable to every county employee. So the part of the settlement is that it's agreed that individual departments can have their own personnel policy, but there are certain things that are federal and state law mandated that apply to all county employees, and that the commissioners can go ahead and pass that by separate ordinance. I'm not 100% sure whether that ordinance has gone through, but what I would suggest is that instead of kicking it to the generic Switzerland County personnel policy, kick it to that ordinance, the ordinance that's taxed to all county employees as opposed to personnel policy. And that's something that I've just done a little bit of research this evening while we've been having the meeting.
Not our issue, but because of the court statement, if a department head wants to go and have their own, handbook, then the county only operates under the liability insurance clause of employees underneath the county's handbook that's adopted by the commissioners. That would mean that every department head would have to go out and find their own liability insurance. Every department. Because our insurance company asked for our county handbook to ensure that all federal and state laws are covered for our employees on that liability sheet. So, if you wanna go out and have your own department handbook, you're gonna have to find your own insurance. And then how do we pay for that?
Come from the same place it does now?
But that's gonna cause us to have a budget shortfall.
Might. But, yeah, I just wanted this to be clear, kind of, from what's changed from last year to this year, I just wanted this last paragraph to reflect that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that ordinance, but if it's not created yet, I'm kind of worried about what we call it.
Nothing's really changed from last year to this year, when you really stop and think about it. It's still, there's still a handbook that's tied to, the only difference is if a department chooses to have their own handbook.
Right, but the way
But they still have to adhere to every federal law regardless.
Right.
And then the
Every state
county,
and federal law regardless, and that's really what's in the handbook.
right, and the county handbook is amended with an ordinance attached to it that states the salary ordinance has to be bound to it, which this salary ordinance would be bound to the county one. But it's still the right of the department head, according to the court suit, that if they wanted to go out and do theirs, they're just not, they gotta figure out, tell us how they're gonna cover themselves on insurance and those kind of things.
Someone did allow for them. having
Which is
their
a
own-
mess all by itself. They're the ones
Just
that figure
referencing
it
the
out.
ordinance that you spoke of that has all the state and federal laws, referencing that is enough. I think this needs to be the minimum.
Let me do a little more research on, if that ordinance has been
I mean,
enacted.
that last sentence on here, within compensation of positions within the salary ordinance remains contingent or compliance with the employee handbook. That could be, that you're just saying there could be more than one handbook, depending on the department. So I just wanted that to be clear, that's all.
Understand.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Lance, but the question is the first sentence. The first sentence reads the Switzerland County Employee Handbook.
Which covers almost everybody,
Right,
except for department heads, elected officials, people in their office. And then the last sentence covers theirs, because if they have a handbook that's separate from the county's handbook, they still have to comply with it in order for the salary ordinance to work for them.
true, but it just says the employee handbook. Is it talking about their own, or talking about the one it mentioned previously, which would be the Switzerland County handbook, which wouldn't necessarily be the one that that department's using? That's what I'm saying.
Would the employee handbook be the same as, like, if let's say the auditor decided to have her own handbook?
I mean, the way that it's written now,
The employee handbook, that would be that employee's
They have to
handbook.
hire someone to
I
copy the
disagree.
handbook.
Ordinarily,
What it is.
when a clause like this is read together, and so having defined it in the first sentence as the Switzerland County Employee Handbook, most likely the employee handbook in the last sentence is referring back to the first
To the
sentence.
first portion, okay. That needs to be worded a little bit.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, all right.
my suggestion is, I'll do some research on what the current ordinance says as far as how the commissioners have tied it to the salary ordinance. And then in addition to that, again, the settlement agreement called for a new ordinance that set out the state and federal regulations. And then if that ordinance is in place, then my recommendation would be that it reference that as opposed to generically the county handbook. But of course, making sure that it's working with whatever other ordinances the commissioners already have.
It's Pandora's box, is what it is.
Does anybody else have any other questions about that? Because I sent this to him earlier today, and he brought that up, that paragraph needs to be changed. And I agree.
So will we have back them at the December meeting, that new language, get it resolved?
Yeah.
Yep.
So Pat, can you be here on December 11th? Add Pat to December 11th.
And or provide language so that we can.
Well, the language will be
address
provided
concerns.
prior to that to get it, and then,
Yep, they'll be provided for that.
yeah, and then she can have that ready, that part done. Okay, and, I will talk to these people before the December meeting. Everyone that we have on the list, and I suggested some of you do too, so that we don't have to hash everything right here, to individually talk to them. Would not be a bad idea, because it might get resolved a lot easier than what you think. I would hope, right?
So we still have to fund Bennington and the tech center. Are we asking the commissioners to use the casino? If they would fund it? Is that what our intent is?
I don't think they have a choice.
I will, Bennington, I know we talked about that with the commissioners during the meeting, and they knew that it was gonna happen.
I mean, it's kind of their responsibility, it all goes back to them.
Absolutely.
Warfield, Bennington, and the tech center are their
Yeah.
babies, kind of, sort of, you know?
It is, and when we were doing the
There's nothing we
casino
can do.
revenue, we always just covered it, because we knew that it had to happen, and it had to come from somewhere.
We can't change the budget now, anything else needs
It
to be
has to be
done
done in January, has to be appropriated in January, because it can't be done now, because it's already set. But those two things were not funded, which is one reason why we never made a decision on it, because you couldn't make a decision on it, because it was already set, the budget's already set. So we have to do appropriations in January for that, to come from somewhere. Okay.
You know, it'll have to be casino money.
Uh-huh.
Casino money's the only place.
Yeah. All right, does anybody have any other questions about salary ordinance, discussions, questions?
I have one question, if you
Yes.
don't mind. So the elected officials, it was discussed that they would not get a raise next year? Is that right?
Yes.
So there's no more discussion about that?
Well, I will say, and I want everybody to go back, I don't have my budget book, but I'm sure one of us has notes on this $9,000. Why we left it in. And I know we have talked a little bit about possibly distributing something to him. So that could be an improvement.
From the 9 that was left.
Yeah.
I only
I
think
don't know what it
it's,
would equate to.
well, I mean, you got the maintenance worker is making more a year than the elected official.
For which one?
manager makes $22.52 an hour, and the elected official makes $21.89.
Well,
If they work
do that
40
with the
hours.
Elected official, they could work
But that's not
how many?
I
you
know.
can't say that the, like, that position is the
He
same
works
as
40
this. I
hours,
don't
he
know.
works
And
40
he
hours.
gets paid for overtime as well.
Yeah.
So the elected official can't just base that off 40 hours for us.
I mean, if you say, but he makes more, he makes $22.52 an hour, but he works a
Versus
40 hour
annual
week.
salary.
Elected officials don't work a 40-hour week.
Why don't they?
Well, one,
Who does? Man, you work 40 hours a week
Most of the time, yes.
in your
Right.
office,
In my office, yeah, I was here till 5 o'clock last night.
okay?
And I never take a lunch. Today I did because I knew I would be eating supper tonight because I'm here.
The reality is, there are no funds there presently, to Todd's point, other than $9,000, it doesn't make sense to push that to December as
I'm
well.
not talking,
And if there's funds that get,
no, when you do the salary ordinance, you have the only thing you can amend in the salary ordinance during the years is everybody but the elected officials.
got it.
Theirs have to be done
Yeah.
during this, you cannot change it for them.
the responsibility, whether you work 40 hours or 35 hours.
It's your
I think-
office.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so,
I just
That's
think
what I'm
we had
just
such a
trying-
budget shortfall, we have issues with the budget, we have issues with the casino.
we just
I
have
know that
issues
the
on
commissioner's
the-
recommendation was no commissioners, increases, no council increases, and I believe they put in there no elected officials, that was their recommendation.
Yes.
That's all I'd
So we
ask.
can't use that 9,000 for elected officials anyway, is what you're saying?
So we can do whatever we want to before we do the salary ordinance.
That's what I'm,
That's what I was saying, so if you wait until December, and maybe we have some resolution on some of these other items, maybe we have more than $9,000. And then you
Yes.
have, a discussion.
Yes.
Council works for free next year, and you guys just maybe
When is the last, when's the last time the council received an increase? With three out of the last, once out of the last
It's
4
happened
years?
once since I've been on
What do
council.
you think,
Yeah,
Lisa?
yeah.
I think they should work for free next year. Council.
Now, they've had one increase in the 8 years that I've been here. There's been one time since 2016, and I think it was a 3%.
And at some point, that's gonna come back on future council members, because
Nobody does it for the money.
No, I
Absolutely
wouldn't say
nobody
that
does it
either.
for income. All right, anybody else have any questions on salary ordinance? All right, we got our homework for us. Now, board reports. Anybody have anything?
I don't have anything.
Nothing on fire chief side.
Recycling board meets, next Wednesday.
Andrew?
I think the main question with endowment is if the commissioners are gonna fund the debt service this year. And we can't get an answer out of our commissioner representatives, so
that's it.
that's where we're at.
Yeah, hindsight's everything there. If everything would have been resolved this month, had it stayed the same as it was, if we were just passing it out in November. But we opened up can of worms there, didn't we? Changed
What?
it all. You know, when we, in the first of the year, we decided we weren't changing percentages on anybody. We were just gonna divvy it out in November instead of doing it earlier in the year after we received the money, you felt comfortable doing it. When the casino was 22% down at that time, now we're only down 6.04% on the year.
It doesn't matter, cause you gave away control of it, so we don't have to say anything.
We learned that we didn't have control of it because we dug into it, so we didn't give away control of anything. It was found out that we were doing it incorrectly. I didn't give away nothing, I wish we still had doing the same thing, because we had voted to continue to do the school, continue to do the police officers, continue to do, you made the motion, all emergency services with a 10% haircut. But we had planned to do all of that, and it all changed when we went to try to dig, because everybody was so upset about waiting to November. Well, one was upset about waiting to November. Everything else
It's gonna be
was
real
like
simple,
that.
because the endowment's gonna diffuse, it's gonna go away, and then we can just start throwing the money over on the taxpayer.
Taxpayer.
And the easiest way to raise taxes
Yeah.
through the school, so.
I get it. But everybody says we don't pay enough taxes, right? We've heard that how many times? Somebody said we're not paying enough in
We
Swift
don't.
County.
Well, that's me.
I've heard that a couple times too, but that's something to think about, but just-
Where do we add on, giving the trustees the rest of their money, or?
It's not our control.
not our thing to do. We had decided what we were gonna do, that we're gonna get it all in November,
And it doesn't matter now.
But we're doing it wrong.
but we were doing it wrong,
Cause I
so.
had one ask me the other day, what am I filing?
I'm talking to this.
Hopefully the commissioners will, I don't think the commissioners changed anything,
No, they haven't done anything.
no. I think they're waiting to see what we're doing. It's my guess.
I thought they were waiting for the attorney to get a new MOU drawn up.
That too.
I drafted a new MOU, and it's, I mean, I don't know if it's been,
Is it like a grant thing? Yeah,
I mean, it's like a grant application.
So that you can give it to someone that's, an NGO,
Correct.
Does this include a Y?
they're an NGO.
They would be an NGO.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's hit their calendar for a meeting yet or not, but.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions over the, investment in cash paper that we received? You guys saw that? It's a pretty good interest rate still going. Stock market's up a bunch. So hopefully things will keep going good.
So, do we wanna attend the investment, I know they just created the financial board, and we don't have anything to do with it, but we do get the report. And looking at the report, we're investing $100,000 in CDs, that it doesn't say how much interest rate we're getting. Why you would lock up county money in a CD, or the duration of the CD, is beyond me, when you can get Indiana Trust and the money's liquid for a better rate.
That's redevelopment CDs,
Some of
right?
it, yeah, I was gonna say, if you're looking at Gail's report,
Yeah.
the treasurer, some of that is redevelopment money.
It's redevelopment CDs. I think his question was, why is redevelopment doing CDs instead of something
Probably
else?
so they can get easy access in case they need it.
But once you're in a CD, there's no easy access. You pay a surrender
Yeah.
penalty
Yeah.
unless you're on the term. You get seven,
Yeah.
not sometimes.
But,
A CD is locked
I
rate.
waive the fees for
Okay.
people.
What you
That's a
did,
good question, but
I mean,
Trust Indiana's
I'm gonna
4.9%
say
paying
they're
right now, you can take the money in and out as you need it. There's no
done.
60-day, 90-day, 60
yeah,
months.
I mean,
Indiana
I
Trust
think
is
putting
their
it in
minimum.
Indiana Trust at the rates that Indiana Trust is giving us right now, it's
Isn't there a
unbelievable.
minimum?
And then why,
Indian Trust?
what do we have, something like 6.2 million in the bank, making .40? Why? Why do we need that much money, cash available to this county, month in and month out?
Who makes that call?
Well, Andy, it appeared it was the treasurer, because we never had a finance board until less than 60 days ago.
You guys know that most treasurers have a financial advisor on staff? They do, in the state, when you go to the AIC meetings and you talk to the treasurers, and you learn people that are there, almost every treasurer has a financial advisor.
I mean, it's probably something we ought to look at, talk to Yvette, moving into the next year is, look, if you
How
need
you
a
gonna pay
financial
that?
advisor, let's look at that, because that makes a lot of sense.
We can cut that ordinance officer and fund it that way.
You're not gonna get a financial advisor working for $40,000.
Your financial advisor is gonna get paid a fee.
I
for money
just didn't know they all had one on staff, but most of them
Still,
do.
yeah, if you have someone on staff, that's not necessarily, they're gonna want more than just a fee.
What are you talking about?
No, I'm just talking about, I was just saying, that, most treasurers have a financial
Hold on,
advisor.
Rand.
Outside.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry.
yeah.
You're talking about an outside financial advisor.
No, they have somebody that
Someone
works
on
in the
staff, that's
office.
what she said.
Yeah, they're on staff. I was fascinated by that.
That's
I
probably
asked-
a county,
does it?
that's probably a county that's got two deputy
I asked
coroners too.
her how busy, there was one up by Fort Wayne, I asked her how busy she was, she says there's a lot of downtime, but when you're busy, you're really busy. But a lot of times, you're just getting through the day. But there's times that you're really, because sometimes the treasurer's office is very busy, and sometimes it isn't, depends on when the taxes are coming in. But then there's a lot of downtime, but you're on staff for the whole year round, so I asked a lot of questions, because I thought that was interesting to me. No board reports, anybody, audience?
Just got a question.
Sure.
So, Wendy's right, it's hard to add new individuals. We have a brand new animal control officer that doesn't even have a badge responsibilities and have him do code enforcement as well, because he's already out in the county, and he might find a dog next to another place. I mean, it's just a thought.
Right,
Because all you probably would have to do is expand his job description a little
His
bit,
title.
and maybe add a little bit more pay to his pay. Cause I don't know, I mean, me, if I'm looking at it, I think that neither one of those jobs is really a full-time job. I could be totally off the rocker, but that's just a thought. Okay.
Does the county have the ability to put a lien on property if they don't go by the ordinances?
If you have somebody that'll push the codes, then enforce it, yes.
Certain codes you can automatically get a lien, other codes you have to go to court to get the lien, but I mean, there are liens at the end of the day on some enforcement.
BB's code enforcement has it, I think, on the third notice.
But nobody enforces.
I think somebody will enforce it.
That's what Patriots do.
Yeah, Patriots, I think they copied some of that. Chris, when he was on city or town, I believe he used theirs to copy, but
So
it's pretty stringent.
who's enforcing it on Patriot?
They hired a code enforcement officer.
Yeah, and they've got liens on properties.
There's a lot of places are hiring enforcement officers and they're paying for themselves.
And Hanover hired one, and I
If you
guess
can
he's
get
done
people to pay the
an
fine.
amazing job up there.
Except they're paying for themselves.
Yeah, but you got people that won't pay the fine, they don't care that their grass is,
But if you lien on our property,
they don't care,
It changes.
so you can have it, that's what I've heard. If you're gonna put a lien on it, you can have it, I don't care
I
who
mean,
you do.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Nobody
I
can-
mean,
It's like, yeah, you didn't want it very bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
and
they
they're
don't
gonna sell it and pay that salary.
They don't take care of it, you know, nobody has to.
Well, it may
cry
not
that
be
it-
theirs anyways, it may be.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
They got lane contract.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Done with public comment?
Oh, yes.
Well, sorry, Andy, I kinda wanna refute Andy's comment that Matt doesn't talk to anybody, because Matt and I talked for like an hour and 15 minutes one day, and we didn't agree on anything at all, so we talked for an hour and 15 minutes.
Thanks, Bob.
Just public comment.
We talked.
You didn't agree on that.
That's one meeting, right?
Nothing.
We talked
On
for
that
an hour
note,
and
I'll make a
15 minutes.
motion to adjourn.
Okay, Eric made a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Paul did a second. All in favor? We're adjourned.
That's what I thought.
Long conversation.
We've had a couple good ones.
I wish there was.
We were just saying, then we said, that's it.
Oh, my goodness. That's when you just start agreeing on that.
Now we know.
I don't know, but I think we can get this out.
You better go get some.
Yeah, I don't